Hey, folks, and welcome to the show. This is Counter Clipping Show number 129 for June 26th, 2023. And this will be our Origins wrap up show. And I have a relatively lighter topic to talk about tonight, in addition to the gaming news. So, first of all, welcome everybody to the show and thanks for coming. We got good numbers already. It's all good. I see the chat is already hopping, which is fantastic. I did get to see some of you at Origins, and we'll talk about a lot of that. And I have a lot of pictures to show off. I had more pictures than Facebook would take. Let me put it that way. So, for those of you who have followed me on social media, thanks. There's links to do all those things in the video description. But you'll get to see all the pictures here tonight, as opposed to just the ones that I was able to share, which is kind of a pain in the ass. This will be easy, relatively speaking. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to talk about tonight. Before we get into that, I will remind everyone to please do thumbs up the video if you're enjoying the show. If you are a recurrent viewer, please do subscribe to the channel if you're able to do that. And there are a bunch of links to support the show in other ways in the video description, so check those things out. Super chats and super stickers are on. That helps support the show, and it helps highlight your comment, which I might otherwise miss, because we typically have a whole lot of people here every Monday night. So before we go any further, let me pull this up and say hello to Six Actual, Board Gaming, Easer, Brian Jarvis, Chad Kennedy, Chet Bell, Cyber Field Marshall, Daniel David Imperato, Ed Holtzman, Eric Hansen, Half-Assed Gaming, Henry Sikorsky, the legend himself, Fucko, Jason W., Joe Okabayashi, Joe Perez, John C. from the sunny Philippines. John, I hope it's sunnier there than it is here. HUN644, Lee Grant, Mark McNair, Mark Hodgkinson, Meandering Mike, North Ranger, welcome to the show. Paul Sin, Philip Musket, Pico Armor, welcome. I got to see you guys at Origins, and we got some pictures of that. Ray Garvey, Ray Musselman, Perfidious Albion has popped into the chat. Scott Bell, Stacking Limit, Stigler is in the house. Stigler, I got some news for you. Tim Greenhaw, Tim Zales, Vicky, Vince Ree, William Bird. Welcome everybody to the stream. I apologize if I missed anybody due to the vicissitudes of the way YouTube reports that information to me. We put up my truncated ticker for the evening, which does not contain the usual email address, but if anybody would like to get a hold of me, you can do so at ardwulfslair@gmail.com. I am told that some folks are having problems with that email address. If anybody is having a problem with that email address, there are a million other ways to get a hold of me, including on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Well, don't do Instagram. I never check that. Board Game Geek, I check all those places. So unlikely to check Consum World on a regular basis. But there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. So right now, William Aarons is having problems right now, and that's a problem because he is the winner of our last giveaway. I've decided to delay the next giveaway for a week or two while I recover from Origins. I held up pretty well, all things considered. Knees and hips, not so much. My feet were fine. And then yesterday, when I was pulling the laptop, it's not just a laptop bag, it's kind of the entire portable studio, including the laptop. Well, I was pulling that bag in the house, I blew my back out. So I'm not totally laid up, but it's pretty tender right now. And alcoholic beverages seemed like a very good idea. To that end, we are drinking courtesy Brant from the Armchair Dragons. This is Raleigh Brewing Pineapple First Squeeze. Pineapple American wheat. So let's give this a try from our fine Ardwulf's Lair glass. So I like pineapple and I like American wheat. I can't taste the pineapple and I can't taste the wheat. I think I can taste the wheat. And there's obviously wheat in it, but to me, that doesn't taste like a wheat ale. That tastes like an IPA. It's way over hopped, which is not really rare for American microbreweries, I'm afraid. So I would not recommend it. But if you like your beer under malted and over hopped, this is something you might like if you can get it in your area. Raleigh Brewing Company. Brant gave me like a huge bag of beer, presumably the beer that he did not like. So there's that. So let's oh shit, there's a lot of comments. All right. So now we got the comments up. We can actually see what people are saying here. And I'm going to start with, I think, the GMT update news, because there's some kind of big news in here. I think we'll do it that way. All right. So you'll see the big news when I get to it. I think it's big news anyway. All right, where's the GMT news? All right, so here we go. As usual, if you want to read this entire thing, go ahead, go to GMT's website at gmtgames.com and check it out. I am going to hit the highlights, focusing on new games and upcoming games and the production schedule, but I'll mention a variety of other things. But again, I'm not reading the whole thing because we'd be here the whole 2 hours. All right, so news from Gene. Packing and shipping 500 products. We'll talk about that downstream here. Mr. Vassal, Mr. President, Vassal and Tabletop Simulator modules. I'll have some things to say about this game later on. Andy and Abisnevsky, Red Flag over Paris, and Wilderness War are on Rally the Troops. So Rally the Troops is a relatively new web-based platform for playing wargaming type things that I have like looked at, but not looked at, if you know what I mean. I mean, I've looked at the web page, but I haven't tried doing it. I understand it's got rules enforcement, which is something that Vassal, for example, does not do. But I'm pretty much fine with doing the rules enforcement myself. I mean, after all, if I was playing in person, I would be doing the rules enforcement myself. So that to me is not I mean, that's nice, but it's not a particular selling point. But anyway, moving along. Red Flag over Paris and Andy and Abyss are live over there, and a lot of people do like this. I will point that out. A Distant Plane is on exhibit at the National War Museum in Ottawa, Canada, which is kind of cool, I have to say. Here is a 5 Mr. President videos from Legendary Tactics. I didn't see 5 of them. I saw 2 of them. It's a pretty good channel that does a lot of sort of crossover stuff. So check them out if you are so interested. Digital unboxing, okay, how to play. I watched that. Reboxing, those are silly. I didn't watch that. Review, didn't watch that. And this first year playthrough, I was not able to watch that. So, but if you do want to see like tons of content on Mr. President, go ahead and check this out. This is the channel, unless there's some non-English stuff there, because there is some non-English stuff that I was not able to parse. Legendary Tactics is pretty much providing the best coverage of Mr. President to date that I am aware of, unless I'm missing something and BGG is missing something. So Playdeck Tried Struggle Red Sea will be out on mobile pretty soon. Here's a box art for Panzer North Africa, which is nice. Red Dust Rebellion. Joe Dewhurst is hard at work on the Solitaire system. Playtesters wanted for 18 EUS and for Imperial Fever, which we will talk about momentarily. Conflict of Interest, which is Harold Buchanan. I'm not sure it's fair to say it's Harold's magazine, but Harold is the point of contact that I have had for it. And this My Favorite Card thing is actually a pretty neat article series. New Vassal modules for a variety of things, some of which are new, some of which have been out for quite a while. Designer interviews include El Wargamero Novato, which I don't know what that means in Spanish, but I can guess, and it sounds cool regardless of what it means. Player's Aid have an interview with Jerry White and Ed Ostermeyer from Infernal Machine. We talked to Ted Racer quite a bit, we meaning Dan and myself, last Thursday. Interestingly, so we had a Wi-Fi hotspot with us, and it worked really well on Thursday night, and then much less well on like Friday when there were 12,000 plus people in there. Board Again Games has Jason Matthews as well, and D.L. Desafio de las Aguilas has an interview with Gregory M. Smith, designer of Beneath the Med, and 50 million other things. All right, so here's a variety of links to GMT, P500 editions. Now we're getting into the good stuff here. Imperial Fever, Fields of Fire, Volume 3, The Parachute Regiment, and a second printing of the American Revolution Tri-Pack, which is another one of these. We'll plug these up and take a look at them right now, in fact. We'll start with Imperial Fever because this is pretty new. This is a design by Carlos Marquez Linares, whose name I might be mangling. And this is a deck building game for 3 to 4 players that recreates the period between 1881 and 1915. Players vying for world dominance as they take on the roles of... This is interesting because there are 5 player seats here, and they are the UK, France, Germany plus Austria-Hungary, and the United States plus Japan. That feels odd to me, but then again, this board looks real nice, so there's that. Um, so I don't know that I have a strong opinion on this just at a glance. If you would like to know more about it, by all means, read the rather substantial article that they have here. Fields of Fire is a game system that has drawn some positive attention that I have not personally checked out. This is volume 3, and this looks like British First Airborne. Is that what I'm hearing here? Yes, British First Airborne. So that's cool. What I don't know is this standalone or is this an expansion? Um, and it is a solitaire system, and it has drawn some positive attention by the people who have played it, but that number has perhaps been somewhat limited by a lot of people having issues figuring out how to play it from the rulebook that originally shipped with it. There is a new rulebook. Stacking Limits says that this is a standalone, which does make sense since the other volumes in the series are standalones. Um, a lot of people had problems with the original rule book. A completely rewritten rule book has popped up and is available on GMT's website. I have not looked at it. It is supposed to be quite a lot better. So that's about all I have to say about that. And then, of course, the American Revolution tri-pack. This contains 4 battles, actually. So it's not just a tri-pack, it's a quad pack. It's Guilford, Saratoga, Brandywine, and Utah Springs. Now, I think we can safely assume that this will be identical, possibly with the inclusion of errata from the to the first printing of this tri-pack, which I do have, which is one of these like really tremendous value products, $51 seems absurdly cheap for a large game, 3-inch box with 2 mounted maps. They really ought to put it in a 4-inch box, considering that that is something that we have now established that they are willing to do. That is literally my only criticism of this thing is that the box could be bigger so I could actually fit it all in there. So recent P500 editions, other than those 3, here are our sort of rundowns of those 3 games, which we just took a slightly indirect look at. New P500s on the horizon. New and expanded edition of one of our most popular pre-20th century titles. That could be any number of things. One of the things, and Stigler, I would expect you to chime in if you know and are able to say, um, whether this is in fact a new edition of 3 Days of Gettysburg, because that would be awesome. I would be happy to buy that. John Stanley, any news on GB ACW playtesting from Origins? No, I did not see any GB ACW on the table. I did see some people who do play GB ACW, but I would expect that the majority of the GB ACW crowd is waiting for the event in Gettysburg, which I believe is in a few weeks. It's in July. It's not on the anniversary, but it's in July. So, um, so thank you also, John Stanley, for the support. It is much appreciated. New content for the last 100 yards, another well-regarded series that, or system, I should say, that probably deserves more support. An ancients, an ancients themed game in a popular series that could be anything. It, I suppose, probably Thunderbolt wouldn't qualify. I don't know that that would qualify as a popular series, considering that the last volume in that series went out of print like 20 years ago. A fun, challenging, and fast playing game of World War II tactical combat, which I am almost certainly not up for. Um, very interested in hearing what the pre-20th century thing is and the ancients themed thing is. Ancients, that could be coin, it could be living campaign, it could be anything. I mean, they already kind of hinted at Thunderbolt. So, all right. Central Valley Veterans present Veterans Game Fest in Clovis, California. That is July 7th, 8th, and 9th. So if you're in that area, Mark Ruggiero. I don't know where the hell Clovis, California is, but it's in California. SD HistCon East 2023. This is a really amazing sounding event at the U.S. Naval War College Museum, which you like literally need to get security clearance ahead of time to enter because it's on a base. But in any event, if you are not already signed up for it, you are hosed because it is sold out. So it does sound like a really amazing event. The battlefield for one of the American Revolution battles is like right there, and Mark Miklos is going to give a tour. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing event that I unfortunately am not going to be able to go to. So, Pax Ludica. This is 29th and 30th of September in Cadiz, Spain. A number of really cool looking war game. Tom MC says Clovis is by Fresno, so not particularly far from GMT in that case. Well, it still might be far from GMT to be honest about it. California is a big state. Game More 2. They did this last year and it was considered successful. I think they had like 50 or 75 people or something like that um for a war game forward event. That's very good. Jason W points out that Thunderbolt was teased last month, and it sounds like he has some inside info here. But yeah, I doubt that they're referring to Thunderbolt for that reason, and the fact that I don't think the Ancient World can be considered a popular series in 2023, which is too bad, because I would be all over it if they had 10 volumes in that series. I'd have bought them. Fall weekend at the warehouse. This is in October 2023. Spring. This is spring 2023. That's from the last one. And here's hotel information about that. More about Mr. President from Legendary Tactics. They're finally making decent dice for Commands and Colors Napoleonics, which is great news. It's a little late, but they're making new dice for that. I actually bought the Valley Games dice, like 5 sets of Valley Games dice, so I got all the Commands and Colors Napoleonics dice that I possibly need. Here's a video from Volko Runke about Plantagenet, which is the new upcoming volume in the Levian campaign series. Here is a video on Inferno, which I'm pretty sure that video came out quite a while ago. A variety of other videos. All right, variety of not there yet P500 items that could use more orders. So Rebellion Britannia is real close. That looks like it could potentially be interesting. 1848, the Springtime of Nations. I am on board with that. I am also looking very interestedly at Order and Opportunity. South Asian Monsoon, to be honest, it's not something I was really thinking about, but having had that conversation that we had a few weeks ago with Jason Carr, who is is the co-designer. It actually does sound like there's some pretty interesting mechanical things happening in there, so I may be talked into checking that out. Borikin, the Taino Resistance, that actually looks very interesting to me as well, and that's languishing a bit. So if that sounds big, it's about resistance to colonial settlers in Puerto Rico. If that sounds interesting, by all means, check that out. Napoleon in Egypt has also been languishing, which I think is weird. But that also looks interesting. Hannibal's Revenge, pretty lukewarm on that. Unconditional Surrender mounted maps, which there won't be room for in the box. Other than that, Imperial Eagles might be interesting if you have a particular interest in air games. So we are going to keep going. There's big news here, folks. Big news from our friends at GMT. Most requested P500 games. I guess at the top of the list right now is Red Dust Rebellion and Space Empires, all good things. There were games of Space Empires running at Origins in the Armchair Dragoons Wargaming HQ. That is a terrific game that I like a ton. All right, so charging and shipping currently, and I'm guessing everybody that's going to get charged on these has already been charged. And they have started to actually arrive at their destinations. So they're well into the shipping period on this. These include Border Reavers, Mr. President, People Power, which is, coin in the Philippines, the Barracks Emperors, which is a trick-taking card game about the crisis of the 3rd century with Ray Farrell, and I apologize to his co-designer, whose name I do not recall, and Under the Southern Cross, which I think it's a series by Mike Nagel. I'm not sure that Mike designed that volume in the series, although I would be delighted to be corrected on that. So the next charges and shipments, of which, well, let's see, 18 India, which obviously is an 18XX game. CDG Solo System Pack number 2. For those of you who are super into playing solitaire and got into Volume 1, you probably want this too. Liberty or Death third printing. As I have said in the past, Liberty or Death is one of my favorite coin games. It's in my top 3 coin games. North Africa 41, which I am on the hook for, and I did not order the mounted maps because I'm fine with paper maps, considering that it's probably in an 1.5-inch box. It's probably small enough that I'm not going to have a problem fitting it with the paper map, but I'm almost sure I will with the mounted map. So we are not going to deal with that. And the Plantagenet, which I don't think I've pre-ordered, but I could be wrong. I should go through these to be honest. All right, and counter trays. They got counter trays back in, which is always nice to see because we can always use counter trays. All right, so the 6 things that we just talked about: 18 India, CDG Solar System 2, Liberty or Death third printing, North Africa 41, and the mounted maps and Plantagenet are at sea, and they are expected in the warehouse basically any time over the next couple of weeks. At the printer, and there's a lot here, a giant pile of Commands and Colors stuff, including most of the entire product line for Commands and Colors Napoleonics, plus Samurai Battles, plus Downfall, which is the Chad Jensen John Butterfield game, which does look very interesting. There is also mounted maps and a 3-inch box in there. Tom MC says Space Empires like Terraforming Mars is a game not everyone but me likes. Not sure exactly. So typically, and Stigler says that Steve Paul is the designer for Under the Southern Cross, which we will be doing an unboxing of that. That will probably hit next week. Tom the MPC isn't exactly sure why he just doesn't care for them, even though the theme is totally for him. So I like Space Empires more than I like Terraforming Mars. Space Empires is much. I don't believe you can credibly consider Terraforming Mars even close to Wargame adjacent, and I am a Wargame guy, and Space Empires I consider a Wargame, even though it has other elements in it as well. I like Space Empires a ton. Um, some people balk at the bookkeeping, but I've actually also played Stellar Conquest, which is an obvious inspiration for Space Empires, and Stellar Conquest had more paperwork and bookkeeping than Space Empires has. Space Empires, there is paperwork, but it's pretty minimal in my opinion. Um, so Board Gaming Geezer says that Space Empires needs a big box release with all the expansions. I basically agree. I will point out that Space Empires All Good Things, the third and last expansion, will be shipped in a 4-inch box. Now, I have the main game and the 2 previous expansions, and I kind of looked through it from a 3D printed storage solutions type of point of view, but I didn't actually do all the measurements and stuff like that. At a glance, I don't think I can fit all that stuff in that one 3-inch box. In a 4-inch box, possibly, but then you're adding another expansion to it with two new player powers in it too, or 2 new colors, I should say. So there's that. All right, Mr. President is in a 4-inch box. Bill Simone says the bookkeeping is overblown. Just takes 30 seconds once you make your purchase decisions. I totally agree, but you do have to have a pencil with it. So Peter Fulford says that Terraforming Mars, while a great game, is a bunch of Eurogame mechanics with the theme stuck on it. Not a simulation, but a fun and long game. So I do like Terraforming Mars. I don't feel that its theming is exceptionally strong, but it is stronger than what I encounter with many Euros. Not that I am a Euro expert, to be honest. Perry Spiropoulos asks, are series Hex Encounter games and area series games going to dominate the hobby? They seem to be taking a bigger and bigger part of publisher releases. Honestly, I would have to like do some actual tabulation and analysis to tell you whether or not that seems to be the case or not. However, I will tell you that series games in general do seem to be taking up a lot more hobby bandwidth than they used to. I don't want to, because they definitely do to me, right? And I don't necessarily want to connect my experience to some broader hobby trend based on that assumption. So I think there might be something to this. I would really have to say sit down with a list of, say, 8 major war game or the 8 biggest, at least optically biggest, war game publishers and see how much of their output with, let's say, their output for 2022, and how much of that is series stuff versus non-series stuff. I'm pretty sure a decent amount of it's series stuff. I don't think it's ever going to be like all series stuff. I don't think that's practical. There's always going to be new ideas, right? But I absolutely, from my point of view, series gameplay has kind of come to dominate what I do. Not exclusively, but dominate. But I mean, I made a choice to do that, right? But I don't think I'm the only one that did. All right, so Great Battles of Alexander Expanded Deluxe plus the Tyrant module, Prime Minister, which actually looks quite neat. Pursuit of Glory Second Edition, which I have not ordered, but I really need to. Sovereign of Discord, a Fire in the Lake expansion, which I am on the hook for. The Last 100 Yards, the Russian Front. Going to the printer later this month, and later this month means July. So here's a bit of news, but it's not the big news. CNC Expansion 6, Epic Napoleonics, that's a reprint. Banish All Their Fears, and Norman Conquest Men of Iron Volume 5. I am very much looking forward to Men of Iron Volume 5. I think the previous Men of Iron volumes are terrific. The 3-pack is terrific and a terrific value, and I will be delighted to buy whatever volumes in the series GMT would care to release. Going to the printer in July is Command and Colors Medieval second printing. I'm actually a little surprised that's only on its second printing. Panzer North Africa, which has kind of been in the cooker for a while. Tanto Manta, which is this is not like a series exactly, but it's definitely linked or related games. This is in the same sort of family as Virgin Queen and Here I Stand, both of which are excellent games. I think Here I Stand is better, but Here I Stand is harder to play from like a organization standpoint because it's less flexible in terms of number of players. I've talked about this many times. I'm not going to go into this in detail. You really need 6. You really want 6 people for Here I Stand. Virgin Queen is a little more flexible in that regard. The Plum Island Horror, that is Herman Lutman's game, which may have special guest appearances, just so you know. And Vijaya Nagara, which is a coin. I don't know if it's coin or coin inspired, but it's in that ballpark. Did I just mess this up? Very possibly. Wouldn't be the first time. Oh well. If I didn't mention it, we are continuing to clip GD42 from the Tactical Combat series here. All right. So in Final Art and Proofing are 4 things that were there before. We should be seeing Red Dust Rebellion percolating out pretty soon, which would be great. Cuyus Regio, I'm very much looking forward to that. The things that moved up to the art department, however, include the big news. Barbarossa Army Group North Second Edition. Many of us have been waiting for this for a long time, and that it is finally on the cusp of, that it has actually not on the cusp of anything. It has moved up in the production queue. So I think it's unlikely we'll see it this year at this point, but we should be seeing it probably in the first, based on my general ballpark, absolutely uninformed analysis here. We have a good chance of seeing this in the first half of 2024. Also moving up, our Fields of Fire Deluxe Edition update kit. See above about the rulebook. Fighting Formations, 29th Infantry Division, Next War Taiwan, 2nd Edition, and Seljuk Byzantium Besiege. Now, that's Justin Facino's game. That looks really interesting. If you are into Levian Campaign or you are interested in the topic, I highly recommend checking out the designer interview I did with Justin. And nearing art department readiness, moving up are In the Shadows, which is that game about the French resistance, Iron Storm, Triumvir, and Zheng He, which I know I am mispronouncing, but I don't remember what the correct pronunciation is, and that's how I have always said it. And I'm from Ohio, so I can pronounce it however I damn well please. All right, and that is basically, barring any spectacular thing I see from the bottom here. Guest of Robin Hood box back looks nice. Map looks nice. That's Fred Serval's new game. Panzer North Africa cover looks good. Prime Minister. I'm going to zoom out of this because I want to show you. I have a comment on this this cover for Prime Minister. I like. Oops. Let's see here. I like this cover. I like the art, but I do not like all the negative space at the top. I feel like that logo ought to be a lot bigger. If that ends up being the worst thing you can say about this game, then I believe the game will be in good shape. And the game itself does look pretty interesting. Here is the Chancellorsville Fredericksburg map for Rebel Fury. That's Mark Herman's uh multi-game box set on Civil War battles, which sounds like it's going to be somewhat operational, which I am totally okay with picking that up. And the map looks fantastic. Counter sheet for Norman Conquest. This looks good. Counter sheet for Rebel Fury, which I hadn't seen before. Card art, what looks like card art, maybe, or it's from the display cards for Seljuk. This looks great too. Stuff for Order and Opportunity. This may be a little early for that, to be honest. This is Wolf Pack, which looks intriguing. There's been quite a bit of attention paid to the British Way, which is the coin multi-pack that just came out. And that looks fairly interesting too. And I didn't order that, but I'm a little tempted to pick that up, even though I probably shouldn't. There's a armored German armored formation here that I'm not sure how to sort. And I don't have the light in this room at the moment to do it in a sensible way. So I think we got First Panzer, Third Panzer, Third Panzer, First Panzer, Third Panzer, Jaeger. Okay, I think I see the madness here. And the British Way, so it's like 4 like small coin games in one box, but you can also run them all together as a campaign. And that to me sounds really, really intriguing. Although I think it also deserves, because it's, 4 games about the end of British colonialism. I think it deserves some kind of linking mechanic to play it with alongside Gandhi as well. So I probably should have stuck with whiskey tonight, actually. So, yeah. So if you listen to the video interview that David Thompson did, he pronounces it correctly. And, I did take a class on modern China, and they did spend like the first 2 weeks on how to more or less pronounce the Chinese names, but I don't remember enough of it um, to try and reconstruct that in my head at this time. So I apologize to our Chinese viewers. Um, anyway, so let's get on to Origins, and so I'm going to have to dump this and share a new screen because it is otherwise messed up. All right, so here's me in front of the Wargaming HQ area at the Armchair Dragoons area, which was hopping, by the way, much of the time, particularly Friday and Saturday. Third Stugs. Okay. I left my banner there because I'm adult. Fortunately, Brant retrieved it, and I'm gonna go pick it up probably Wednesday. So Jason W says, yeah, good point. Very good point. Jason W mentioned start with Liberty or Death. That's really the kind of the start of the decline of British colonialism, isn't it? So all right, so here's me in front of the area, and this would be on like Wednesday, so there's like nobody here yet. We like just got there. Even on Wednesday, this generous pile of raffle prizes was available, and this was added to over the course of the weekend. So, for those who have never been with us for Origins, on everybody that plays gets a raffle ticket, and you can put that raffle ticket into a variety of little piles depending on what you would like a chance to win, and almost certainly walk away with something, right? Particularly if, as I have done multiple times, you play in a giant pile of events. But game masters do not get those tickets, so game masters get the shaft instead. We got a sandwich, which I guess I'm happy with the sandwich because I got enough games, right? That's what my wife tells me. But yeah, nice pile of raffle prizes. Thanks to the generous folks at GMT and Enterprise Games, as well as Osprey and some other folk. Deets threw some stuff into the pile too, but they're not in this picture because they weren't there yet. Here is our initial setup of the Third World War from Compass Games, originally produced in the 1980s by Frank Chadwick and a game designers workshop. This is what I played for 24 hours during the convention, largely with completely new people. That huge version of Twilight Struggle is actually a small version of Twilight Struggle. That's Twilight Struggle Red Sea. It's in a thicker box, but it is a smaller box. As you can see, it's pretty much the same box size as Undaunted, which is smaller than a standard bookcase box. Peter Fulford, you have no idea because Brand actually ordered the sandwiches from Katzinger's, which is a deli down in German Village. It's probably 3 or 4 miles away. They did deliver our large order. Katzinger's is really, really good. Better than any sandwich you can get at the convention center. So excuse me. Jason W asks why the map is angled like this. So remember that this was originally a series of 4 games: Battle for Germany, Southern Front, Arctic Front, and Persian Gulf. And the angled map that you see is the map for Arctic Front. This is First Pioneer. Okay. Um, and it's Scandinavia, it's all of Scandinavia, so it has to kind of come in at a 60-degree angle to the rest of the stuff. We ended up not playing the Arctic Front stuff because we felt like it was gonna slow us down too much, and we would have been right. But it is actually a pretty cool game on its own, or played alongside the rest of it. In the 24 hours that we had, if we would have had our normal 3-person group along with one other person who knew war games, even if they didn't know this system, we absolutely could have finished this entire thing in 24 hours. We did not. We got 5 turns done. So we didn't make as much progress as we thought we were going to make. But bear in mind, we were teaching new people to play this reasonably complicated game every every slot. So then that slowed us down, and that was fine. We expected that. Oh, better than Subway. Oh my God. I did eat Subway once and I still regret it. Thanks, Kevin, for stopping by. Jeff Anderson, also thank you for stopping in. And Lee Hannah's checking in right in time for us to talk about Third World War, which we had a great time with. I think everybody was happy with it. We're talking about what we're doing next year, although I don't think we are going to make anything resembling a decision for many months yet. The Soviets do have the ability to decide to invade Sweden, but Sweden's got a fairly large army. And they might join NATO later on, regardless of whether they get invaded or not. All right, so moving along, this is a booth called I got the dealers hall picks come later largely, but I blitzed through there on Wednesday, and I saw this thing and I'm like, I don't know what this is, but it's kind of cool. So apparently this is like if you are a card game publisher, you might need this massive device to collate the cards. It's kind of cool. So when we counted, John Longshore asks who won. When we counted the points out, it was a marginal NATO victory, but that could have swung either way very easily. The Bulgarians were hanging on against collapse against a Turkish counteroffensive led by the United States Marine Corps. But the Soviets had the Warsaw Pact had kind of broken through the Low Countries as well. So really, it could easily have gone either way. The initial, as Lee points out, the initial pact player didn't want to invade Sweden, but interestingly, the initial pact player was in fact from Sweden. So I don't know if that was a factor or not. And Ray Garvey mentions that Lee did a great job teaching. Lee did almost all the teaching stuff. I did a lot of the talking in the very last shift. Lee did 90% of the work in all the other slots. So, and he still did a bunch in the last slot too. This is Enterprise Games as they were setting up on Wednesday after we had deposited some stuff in their booth. And of course, my joke, I posted this and said, my order has arrived. I actually only pre-ordered one game through Enterprise, but they were happy to deliver it. This is the incredibly unflattering picture of Todd from underneath. He was running games of Salerno 43, which were very well received. My intention in taking this was to show that there's two youngsters at this table, but including the kid in the bicycle helmet. But the picture is kind of crap, so you can't really tell. So there's that. Here is Song for War by Invicta Rex Games. This did not make its Kickstarter target, but I really feel like this has. Oops, we got something else going on. Yeah, okay, okay. I really feel like this has a lot going for it. Some people have sort of decided it's an Axis and Allies clone, and it really isn't. I think I think it's considerably more interesting than Axis and Allies. Let me put it that way. They have shown the game off in a number of places, and it's gotten a lot of attention. But their production quality of I mean, the prototype is spectacularly nice. So it's a bit expensive to produce, but this will probably reappear on some kind of crowdfunding platform at some point. Okay. Steve O mentions that Enterprise Games is great to deal with. I, of course, agree completely. Jeff Beeler says instead of using Arctic Front special assets in the far north, the Soviets should invade southern Sweden from the Baltics with them. Overland divisions are enough in the far north. That's a fair statement, I think. Um, John C. will be at WBC. I don't know. The jury's kind of still out. I may day trip out to WBC and be there like a Saturday or Sunday or something like that. I don't know. I got to figure out when people are going to be there. But John, I'll be happy to see you if I do manage to go. Next up is this is the venerable House Divided Frank Chadwick game. I believe this is the Phalanx edition. Yeah. So that this is not in print anymore, I consider absolutely criminal. This is a great introductory war game. I think a lot of people cut their teeth on this thing even back in the day, and I think it is still worth our time now. It was originally produced by Game Designers Workshop, obviously. It was later done by Mayfair in a really unattractive edition, I think. And then in this Phalanx edition, which is a nicer looking version of the Mayfair one. But in any edition, this is a terrific game. And if you are interested in sort of an introductory war game, and one that I think holds up fairly well, even if you're an experienced war gamer, um, you're having a great deal of trouble reading the text on these counters. That's because my light in here is garbage, frankly. It is a point-to-point game, so if you just hate point-to-point games, you might not like that. But this is not a game that was aimed at the same people that were playing Drawing Knock Austin either. Clock Commander 1983, Mo, thanks for coming by. And Mo from Mo's Game Tale. Mo, thanks for coming. Always great to have you here. Next up, we have Legion War Games, Kim Kanger, Dien Ben Phu. There were some people playing this in the general board gaming area. We talked about it very briefly. Everyone agrees that this is a terrific game, and it certainly looks like it. I haven't played it, and I do not own it. It's actually a pretty interesting conflict. One of the comments that one of the fellas playing it mentioned was that he said it doesn't really feel like a two-player game so much as a one and a half player game. And I think there's probably something to that. But if you're playing it solitaire, then that's probably not much of an issue. There's not that much. I mean, and if you're familiar with the historical battle, you'll understand why there's really not a ton, maybe, of decision making to be done on the part of the French. So that seems reasonable to me. Cretaceous Rails, I believe a nasty letter is en route from Holland spiel over this. This is Kevin Bertram running Votes for Women. I believe this is on Wednesday night as well. Votes for Women is from Fourth Circle Games. It's about the women's suffrage movement, designed by Tori Brown, who I got to meet at the event. And that I consider one of the absolute highlights of the entire thing for me. Tori was delightful. I got to talk to her about a whole bunch of stuff, including her game. And I am very much interested in seeing what Tori has next in the pipeline. So, um, and this was very popular, as we'll see shortly. This was extremely popular, and Enterprise Games brought copies and sold out really fast. So you can still get it from Enterprise Games, and I'm sure Kevin will say that Fort Circle has copies, and I'm pretty sure they do, because Kevin's here too. But the game I haven't had a chance to play it. It looks terrific, and I very much would like to play it. And there was no, I couldn't squeeze it in around 24 hours of Third World War in this particular case. But it did Tory Ransom sessions and Kevin Ransom sessions, all of which I think sold out or were otherwise filled. Um, we are now over to some dealers' room stuff. This is a rack of stuff at the fine folks at Decision Games, who were as cheerful and warm as always. Next up is the back of that rack. Now, I will point out here that this is kind of their like other stuff rack. The top shelf or so is Decision stuff. The next shelf down is stuff from Legion Wargames and SPW. The next shelf down is stuff from White Dog and or Historical Game Company and or Pratt's and Editions. They had a lot of things floating around that were here's something from Canvas Temple. And we can, in fact, see. I got more pictures of the battles in the East, so I wasn't even going to mention that yet. I don't know if they sold out or not. The kid told me they sold out. Then Doc kind of grumbled at me when I asked him about it. Here's the backside of that with more Decision, more Legion War games, quite a lot of Legion War games. I would say it felt like they had the entire product line from Legion War games on the shelf. And there was some kind of discount, but only like on the bottom shelf. And there was nothing I was simultaneously interested in, but didn't already have on the bottom shelf. And there's stuff from CSL Conflict Simulations Limited out over there as well. Here's Decision's new stuff table. They did a bunch of reprints of the minis and folios, and their new release for the convention is the first 2 volumes of Battles in the East. Now, these are very nice looking games, released, or I should say, released by Decision like just now, but designed by Tony Burkett. Those of us who have played the Third Winter are familiar with the fastidiousness that Tony brings to his designs. And I have every confidence that these will turn out to be excellent. Do not be surprised to see Tony come on at some point, and we'll have a conversation about all of the various things that Tony is working on, which do include volumes 3 and 4 in this series. Now, this is kind of a descendant of the of it's kind of both Panzer Group Guderian and the SPI about Battles in the East quad, that Tony says takes the best features of both. No, Battles in the East, these are big boxes. These big boxes on the right-hand side. These are volumes 1 and 2. Tony's working on volumes 3 and 4, and those should be up for pledge, as it's called over Decision, pretty soon. This is my one. I took less pictures, by the way, of Third World War, the game I was playing, than I did of anything else at the convention. This is the incredibly shitty close-up shot that I got. Here is some more gaming of Salerno 43. There's actually 2 games of it running here as well. This is Arabian Struggle, which I believe is a playtest game. I don't think this is out yet. And this would be from Catastrophe Games. Even if so, in many cases, I don't necessarily have confidence that Decision Games is going to produce a quality product, but I do sometimes have the sense that their designers are going to produce a quality product. I forgot to ask Doc that. Damn it! I wanted to. They did not have a show sample of Axis Empires. That I can tell you. I would have noticed had they done so. And by the time I get over there to be scowled at by Doc, the the thought had fled my mind, so I did not get a chance to ask about that. I actually did mean to ask about that, so that I didn't is fairly disappointing. And if somebody it says they pay maybe a little less attention to Decision's output than some other companies, well, there's reasons for that, right? There's reasons for that. Their general slipshod performance is one of those reasons. All right, so I'm a little confused by some of the colors here. Those look the same. Those look different. I guess that's what we're going with. I got tons of these tiny baggies. All right, so Arabian Struggle, I should say. I did not really get a good look at this. I did take a picture of it. This is the team game of A Distant Plane. This is something that Brant runs basically every year. It is a very interesting way to approach A Distant Plane. There are four teams of two players, and you have like kind of one person making the military decisions and one person making the political decisions. And there's no like rules in the book for this, but Brant has figured them out. He's been running this for years, and it's pretty cool. I have played it on more than once, I think. This is the initial setup of the command post exercise, and some of the I forget what branch of professional wargamers put this thing on, but it is put on by professional wargamers, and based on some exercises that they use at the Army Staff College, and it's using this Flashpoint campaign's video game as kind of the structural basis. I have participated in this too. I've talked about this on a number of occasions. The This is worth your time. If you have never experienced this before, you will get something out of it. You may or may not find it fun and want to do it again, but you will get something out of it if you do it. It's almost worth going to Origins just for this. And this is like super loud. It's very high energy. You're exhausted when you're done with it. There's a there's ranting happening. There's ranting happening in the chat, folks. This is Pico Armor Panzerblitz. This was being run by the Pico Armor folks. They're tiny, tiny tanks, tinier than Micro Armor, using the Panzerblitz rules. This looked terrific. It looked like a lot of fun. This attracted a lot of attention. And as Brant points out, TPX is based on exercises from the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College. Team are the dev team behind the computer game. There you go. So answer had. But yeah, this Pico Armor Panzerblitz looked pretty cool, and the fact that they used Panzerblitz, I thought was pretty cool too. And it was like an East Front thing. Here's some more Salerno 43. Here's some more Arabian Struggle. Apparently, I got some duplicate pictures. Here's some more Team Coin Game. Here's some more. Did I get double pictures here? Command Post Exercise. Here's Kevin running Votes for Women again. I'm pretty sure this is a different group that he's running it for here. This is Zermatt from Catastrophe Games. Very interesting game about urban combat in the Afghan conflict. Panzerblitz was originally an SPI design, as Captain Nolan points out. That is correct. And, it was refined over the years in Panzer Leader and Arab Israeli Wars as well. But then that was under Avalon Hill. Zermatt comes highly recommended. It looks pretty neat if you're into this topic. Here is let me try and get this right. Studio 2. Studio 2. Now, I'm told that Studio 2 is a fulfillment house, which basically means that they handle the warehousing and that kind of stuff, as opposed to the printing. They do not do the printing. But they handle like all the interfacing with game stores and distributors and stuff like that for a large number of publishers, the overwhelming majority of which are in the RPG business. I always look at the other stuff, and I probably occasionally have bought a couple of other things from them, but of course I am right over there to the Traveler stuff. I did buy, you'll see this in the upcoming loot video, but this is fair, John. John says that their company name Catastrophe Games will come back to haunt them if they release a lemon. And yes, there was a huge advanced Civ game, which I did not get pictures of, actually. You'll see pictures of a couple other big things here in a minute. Panzerblitz, it's safe to say, is one of the more influential war games in the history of war games. So, anyway, here's the Traveler stuff from Studio 2, and this is all Mongoose Publishing stuff. This is all Mongoose Publishing stuff, including Shield Maidens, which is their new RPG, in which I am not immediately attracted, and Sea of Thieves, the RPG, which that's based on a video game that I haven't played. This is one of the 4 mini games in Brief Border Wars that Brant was running. This was very well received at the convention, so I'm happy to see that from Compass Games designer Brian Train. Here is another of the. This is the Vietnam one, I think, and I don't know what this one is. I know this is the Vietnam one because I think that's the one I played. Um, Not at this event. I played this at BGF like last year. But it's a pretty interesting game system, and it's kind of, it's 4 games in the same box. Here is the huge Train Gamers Association, and as grouped off to the left is more train games. This is really only a picture of maybe 2/3 of the entire area, about half of which um, was Ticket to Ride, by the way. Brant, thanks very much for the support. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Also, the sandwich was much appreciated, and the salvaging of my expensive banner. That's also nice. Thank you. Obviously, I didn't do any of this stuff, but that's not to poo-poo this stuff. This train game stuff is very popular. There's a huge tournament, a huge play area for train games there, and I always have fun when I play these things. William Boardman says that the Studio 2 people were not friendly or helpful. It really did depend on who you talked to, because there's like people there from Studio 2 and then people there from the various publishers that Studio 2 deals with. I talked to somebody whose name I didn't catch, but they were with Onyx Path, and they were very informative and friendly, and I have no complaints. The youngster that I dealt with, on the other hand, the first time when I actually bought something from them, he didn't seem particularly like he wanted to be there. So maybe you dealt with him. 18XX series is in with that bunch. Yes. This thing that you see right now is giant diplomacy played on a giant rug, with like sticks that you use to push the pieces around, and then presumably you get into sword fights with, as the game deteriorates into a general melee. So diplomacy, not my bag, but it is a classic, and it is, I don't want to say one of a kind, but boy, there's not that much stuff out there that's quite like that, where it's like 99% of this game is not in the rules, it's just negotiation and knifing in the ass. This is Lego diplomacy. I was actually kind of tickled to see this. I thought this was pretty cool. They even get these like cartoony order sheets that they got. That's kind of neat. And I'm like, oh, is this Lego diplomacy? That's cool. This is pretty cool. And presumably you can like pick it up and break the board over your opponent's head after they betray you in the context of playing the game. But this was pretty neat. This is a game of Combat Commander that was being played in the Armchair Dragoons area. You all know my feelings about Combat Commander. Many, 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 many people like it a lot, and they're not wrong. This is Liberty or Death. We're in the Armchair Dragoons area over here. There was a couple of slots of this running. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of my favorite coin games, on the American insurrection, if you will. And to the British, it was an insurrection, right? And actually, Harold Buchanan is the designer on this. He was talking about it the other day. Brant got invited to help out with Carolina Game Tables at Gen Con. Oh, that's unfortunate that you can't make it. I can't make it to Gen Con either. Screw that. It's not my thing. It's not my thing. I do not like the removal of player agency. I don't know what this was. I don't know what rules these people were, but there were stormtroopers and snow speeders and AT-AT walkers and all kind of cool stuff here, so I had to get a picture of it. Brant says that 4 slots of Liberty or Death were running, and the French won all 4 of them. Really? That's interesting. And William Boardman says this is the Battle for Hoth game. Is that like an actual game, or were they just using like miniatures rules to play out the Battle for Hoth? Or is that what the Battle for Hoth game is? Because there was a Battle for Hoth game put out by West End that I don't remember. I remember seeing it I want to say in a box, but I don't know if it was a standalone game or what, because I was not really into the West End Games Star Wars game. A clever system, though it is. I'm not sure what this was, but it was a Lego castle with Lego ramps and some tanks or hover tanks or some shit. And it was very photogenic, so I took pictures of it. and it looks like they're using BattleTech rules on this, but I could be wrong. William, William Boardman says it was the Battle for Hoth scenario in the schedule. Well, I didn't look at the schedule. I didn't have time to look at the schedule. I knew what I was committed to. This is Shores of Tripoli. They were just setting this up at the time. Several slots of this ran as well. This is also from Port Circle. This was very well received. It's about the campaign against the Barbary pirates, and it's quite a neat game. I have some playthrough video of this with Kevin the designer in the channel, so check that out if you want to see more about this. This was seen over in the general gaming area on a table, and the people that were doing it had gotten up and wandered off somewhere. This is what looks like a magazine game from Six Angles from 1994. And beyond that, I can't tell you what it is because it's in Japanese, but it's something East Front. Fairly attractive map, especially for 1994 too. So it was interesting to see this, and I wish I'd have run into the folks doing this. This is Sekigahara. This was also in the general gaming area. A fairly aesthetically pleasing game. I did. William Boardman asked about Distilled, and no, I didn't pick it up, but I did notice Distilled, and I also noticed that in general gaming areas there were people playing it. So I believe it to have been a new release for Origins by whoever the people that produce it are. The ASL folks were here. This is a scenario. This is Shanghai 1937 Pacific scenario from something that Bounding Fire has either done or it has in the works. They are, however, here on standard ASL geomorphic map boards. They played this for about 3 days, as I recall. So it's a good sized scenario, and they said they all had fun with it. Here we have Inferno. This was busted out on a table a couple of times as well by a number of people that I know and who I chatted it up with. And they were kind of trying to figure it out. They are not previous Levian campaign players, but I believe you'll agree that this is very photogenic. Here is we had a special gift for getting pictures of this stuff just as they were setting it up. This is one of the slots of Space Empires 4X that ran. And by the way, those all sold out. So here is one of the rare pictures of the Third World War featuring the Yugoslavs and Albanians, along with some Bulgarians that are invading Yugoslavia. Relatively early. This may have been turned, I think this was turned to thinking about it, because that's when the Greeks decided to start invading Albania. And Albania did get conquered, but then Yugoslavia got conquered too. Here's one of the pictures I grabbed with ID Jester, who made it out to the convention. I was delighted to see him. He didn't play anything with us because he doesn't have time for us peasants, but he was there and he was very friendly and he said hello. And I'm not sure when he left, but I think he left on Saturday. I think that sounds right. To fly back to the misbegotten, pestilential, mosquito-ridden, malarial swamp that is Florida, where he lives. Here's another one, which is probably the better of the two pictures over Third World War. Here's another actually pretty good Third World War picture. And up here we have the Western Front with a Soviet division and a half or so that actually managed to get across the Rhine. After which, and this is on, I believe, turn 2 as well, after which they were surrounded by the entire French army and annihilated, which was amusing. The French took a lot of losses too. And it was not an entire Soviet front or corps. It was one stack with, I think, a division and 2 brigades or something like that. And the Soviets just did not manage to back it up. And for the remainder of the game that we got done, I think they did cross the Rhine, but they crossed it up north. Here's some more Third World War action. Pretty crappy picture, to be completely honest. Here's the Italians trying to back up the Yugoslavs, which was probably helped the Yugoslavs hold on for another turn or two, to be completely honest. I always look like that, John Clark. But here is the Soviets having taken Trieste and cut off some Italians who can still be supplied through the port of Pula. But I think the Soviets may have dropped some air mobile units in there to take that away from them as well. The Soviets bounced their heads, I think, for 2 turns at the end of our game against Venice. They did not manage to take it, despite having most of 2 Soviet fronts down there. Here is Fort Circle, or one of the things that Fort Circle has in development, the companion game. I don't know that it uses quite the same system, but obviously it's thematically the companion game. Two Shores of Tripoli. This is Halls of Montezuma, about the Mexican War. So I looked at this. This looks cool. I didn't get a chance to play it for obvious reasons because I was tied up into other stuff. But I think it's safe to say that as well received as Shores of Tripoli was, I think this will be equally well received, assuming it's as good of a game and the people who played it had good things to say about it. There was talk about this, whatever the hell that happened with the Wagner Group in Russia. But I mean, I was cagey about talking about it because I'm like, man, I'm getting my information from Twitter here. I don't know how reliable this shit is. So, and like the mainstream news organizations were like hours behind the story. So, by the time people started talking about it more, it was kind of over. So, I don't think it's over. I think we will still be seeing the ramifications of this down the line, and don't be surprised if one of 2 individuals ends up mysteriously falling out a window. So there's that. All right, here is an in progress game of the outstanding Space Empires 4X. A great game. I think Mike Colello from my own worst enemy ran this. That is a terrific channel if you are interested in solitaire games. So go check that out. And this was these, like I said, all these slots sold out. If I wasn't committed to something else, I would have been delighted to have played Space Empires 4X. And in fact, Mike was talking about doing like a monster Space Empires 4X that runs the entire weekend, which I, of course, would be delighted to participate in, but I'll probably be involved in something else. This is Solder City. This is an in development game from Tim Densham over at Catastrophe Games. And this looks kind of like a follow up to Zermatt. Again, for those interested in this kind of urban conflict in the Iraq or Afghan wars, this is something you might want to keep a close eye on. It did, Jeff Beeler. You have the opportunity to send it somewhere else, and I think there might be reasons to do so. But if you are doing that, then I would wonder why, unless your intention is to drive it into North Italy and then drive it up through southern France from there. And I don't know how practical I think that is. Not was this Sales of Glory? This may have been Sales of Glory. I don't know what it was, but I thought it was photogenic, so I took a picture of it. This is Plains Indian Wars, which also did happen at the Armchair Dragoons area and was well attended. The folks who played it seem to have had a positive opinion of it, and it has been reasonably well received. Brant says that Solder City, I don't know if we're going to get to the actual topic tonight here. Brant says that Solder City is mostly the same mechanics as Zermatt, and the map is always the same shape, and there's no additional chrome. Okay. I didn't get a chance to play. I haven't played Zermatt either. This is Alex Knight's Land and Freedom. This ran at least once. This is his game about the Spanish Civil War. I have it. I picked it up at Buckeye Game Fest because they were there. This looks really interesting, actually. And I am looking forward to playing this. And I noticed they've got the same 3D printed little counter bins as we do. Those were not ours. You could get those models from Thingiverse. And they're super duper handy. This was not in our area. I don't remember where this was. It may have been in the general board game area. This is 1775 Rebellion from Academy Games. This game is very good. This is actually one of the Wargame adjacent games that I have on the list of the topic tonight if we get to it. And I guess I'll talk about when that happens. So this is the Birth of a Nation series or something like that. There's like 3 games in the series. This is the only one of them I've played, but I did like it quite a bit. And I've played the digital version too. Here's a little bit later on the ASL board. I'm not sure you can see that much progress has been made. Ken Reppel had playtest versions of his Saratoga magnum opus, which is in development for Compass Games with development by Gilbert Collins. It's kind of evolved into a Saratoga campaign game in the sense that all the battles of the Saratoga campaign will be in the box, okay, including Bennington, which is the one they were playtesting here. Ken takes his designs very seriously. He does not rush things. I have a high confidence in this. I am very pleased with what I see from 1812 War on the Great Lakes Frontier thus far. I don't know what this was, but it's some ziggurat looking thing that was in one of the role playing rooms and it looked cool. So I took a picture of it. There's tentacles and ogres or some shit. Here's Space Cheese. I had to take a picture of this because I thought here is some traveler cargo that we have found here at Origins 2023. Space Cheese. I may use this in a future traveler campaign. Here is an improperly rotated photo. This is the Enterprise Games table sometime after Votes for Women sold out. I don't know if it was the first game to sell out over there. It may have been though. But he brought like 20 or 30 copies, I thought, and they evaporated pretty quickly. And it felt like I didn't get like pictures of this, and I wasn't there on Sunday to like ask how they did. Although I did ask on Saturday how they were doing, and Don's like, "Well, yeah, we're doing pretty good." So, and I mean, you could tell that like their shelves and the tables were like visibly cleaned out. There was a lot of stuff gone, and I'm happy to say that I didn't buy all of it. That said, I have kind of a lot of it, so there's that. Here is their table from relatively early in the con, including the new pile of stuff from GMT, which includes Barracks Emperors under the Southern Cross, Border Reavers, People Power, and for some reason, Mr. President is not in this shot, but they did still have copies of Mr. President at this time, and a variety of slightly less new GMT product over here as well, including Ancient Civilizations of the Middle East and the British Way. Brant says he helped them pack up on Sunday, and they were much lighter than what we hauled in. I hope so. So that it was a lot of stuff that we hauled in on Wednesday. So, John Madison asks, was there a good presence of wargame playtests or designers at this Origins? So I don't know that I had exceptionally good visibility on this, but yes, there were a number of wargame designers, and there were a number of other people who are in our sphere, and I saw a bunch of playtests happening, and I even got pictures of some of them. I think we're considering Halls of Montezuma a playtest too. So you have seen pictures of at least 3 or 4 playtests, like literally while we've been sitting here. So yeah, I'd say so. I mean, none of like the big names that have been around forever have been there, but I don't know. Jason Matthews is a pretty big name, right? So he was there. Here is one of the upright racks, and I want to say these pictures were from Thursday, so relatively early upon contact with the public. This was basically all GMT stuff, and this thing was down to 2 shelves by the time I last looked at it on Saturday. This is one of the other tables, so they kind of have like a main table with like newish stuff, and a side table with stuff that from GMT that's less new, and a rack with stuff that's out of print. And then this table is kind of the somewhat discounted table area. And they have pretty good prices on this stuff too. And there's good games here. Arquebus, Cataphract, Storm Over the Reich, Falling Sky, Churchill. I wouldn't call Gathering Storm a good game since nobody has actually figured out how to play it. Jeff Grossman was there, upcoming Perryville game from Revolution. I didn't know that. So that's disappointing that I didn't know that. William Boardman, I don't know if there was more this year than last year or not. I mean, I think there must have been, but remember last year was still really light from post COVID. So Kevin Bertram asks, wouldn't it be great if the CSR awards were announced at Origins in 2024? Boy, that takes some doing. I won't say that such a thing is impossible. 2024 seems like a very tight timetable. But That's very unlikely to happen in 2024. For the longer term future, I won't say that it's impossible, but we got to have a conversation with those folks too. Here is Battles in the East from Tony Burkett and Decision Games. They are mounted maps. They're very nicely produced, 5/8 inch counters. No complaints about the physical component quality whatsoever. I haven't seen the game since it was very early in playtest, so I'm reluctant to make any additional comments about it at this point. But I can tell you that Decision seems to really believe in it. And maybe that's not an incredible endorsement right there. But more importantly for me, Tony believes in it. And to me, that is important. So here's more decision stuff that I did not bother to rotate correctly. It's really just another angle shot. Here's their upright rack again. You can see a bunch of Goss games up there. You could see some more decision games. They did have one Flight of the Eagle box from Prattson Editions, but unfortunately, it wasn't one of the two that I needed. Here's another picture of this. Wargames sale. Buy two, get the second game. Buy one, get the second one at 50% off, but bottom shelf only. There wasn't anything on the bottom shelf that I wanted and didn't have already. Brant says he got actual video of Doc having an actual conversation with someone instead of just growling at them. I believe that is fake news, and that video has been doctored. Here is a variety of things from Revolution Games in Ziplocs, as well as a couple odds and ends from Decision. Here's the magazine rack with S&T and World at War and the quarterlies and whatever else they had. Objective Nuremberg, that's the last game of one of Stigler's favorite series, 7 Days to the Rhine. I know he has an incredibly high opinion of that. More pictures of Decision Games' rack. I seem to have gotten a lot of pictures of that. Here's fellas that had a Dungeon Map Sherpa blanket. These are the same people that had the Dungeon Map shower curtain. $50 seemed a little steep on this to me. But here's the shower curtain, and that's only $23. Now, I did get my wife's permission to buy a Dungeon Map shower curtain. However, we bought a shower curtain, so I think she'd be upset if I replaced it with this in the middle of the night. Another picture of Traveler items over at Studio 2. Here's a fantastic non-endorsement that is a great way to get me to not give you a fucking nickel. Here's Cubicle 7. They do some stuff for Warhammer Fantasy. And I think that's kind of the main thing that they do. They do like the 40K RPG and the Warhammer Fantasy RPG. And I'm not into any of that. However, I will make an observation that Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which has been through, I don't know, 5, maybe 6 editions now. Their edition of it looks very well done if you like it, if you like the game system. And Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay has some of the best adventure material or campaign material ever produced in no, I've actually done pretty well with Brant with that tonight, oddly enough. And I've said Cubicle 2 a number of times. But fuck. So there's Cubicle 7 and Studio 2, which I have been conflating back and forth for years. And this year they were more or less right across from one another. So I did it even more. So I got it correct at least once. So I don't feel like Mike is exceptionally introverted. I mean, not with me, he's not exceptionally introverted. He's very mild fella though. I don't know that you interpret that as being an introvert or not. But yeah, I mean, he was like talking to people and everything. He's way more extroverted than Doc is, for example. Not that that's a huge milestone to cross. Anyway, Cubicle 7 is doing a really nice. I'm not into it, but what they are doing with the Warhammer Fantasy game does appear to be really well done. Their presentation is really good. I have even less interest in the 40K RPG. William Boardman says bit the bullet and bought a lot of that stuff from Cubicle 7. Biggest purchase of the week. Never played it before, but thought we'd give it a chance. Gorgeous production values. Yes, they do a really good job with it. And the system is mechanic, at least, my play experience with Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is from the first edition from Games Workshop back in the God knows whenever. This would have been might even have been in the 80s. God. It was a long time ago. I don't know. I know that one of the editions that some other licensee did was like not the same game at all. It was really kind of a board game. Cubicle 7 has taken it back into a true RPG. Um, I'm very impressed with what they have done with it, but I don't have any prospects to do anything with Warhammer Fantasy role playing, so I will stay away from it. And we got some good chat about the Battle of the Wilderness in progress over here in the chat as well. Here's some stuff for one of the confusing array of 40k RPGs. I don't know anything about that. This is stuff for the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay line, and like I said, it's all really well done. These very fancy tarot cover looking books are the campaign books for the Enemy Within campaign, which is like this set of 5 slip covers. I don't even know what those cost, but they're very impressive. Here is the Free League with the Twilight 2000 RPG, and there is an urban combat supplement that they had that debuted at Origins as well, which did sell out. I do have a dealer's room walkthrough video coming, by the way, where I'll talk a little bit more about this. The Vysen game is some kind of fantasy or horror game based on Nordic mythology. I don't really know anything about that, and I'm not interested in it, so I didn't look at it. Here's more Free League stuff. Here's the One Ring RPG, which they have done a really, really nice job with. I actually kickstarted this and got all the stuff at this point. Here's the Alien RPG, which, as you will see in the loot video, I did pick up the core book for this. I would never run the core book for this. I will instead liberate stuff from it for Traveler. But it does appear really well done. I will certainly give them that. This is the Indie Game Developers Network. They are one of the 2 companies selling, or consortiums, or communes, or whatever they are, selling independent RPGs at Origins and elsewhere, presumably as well. I did end up buying something from these folks, which you'll see in the loot video. This is Green Ronin with a whole bunch of stuff, including the new. They didn't actually. Looks like at this point they got the Fantasy Age 2nd edition core books in, I think, on Saturday. They did not have them Thursday or Friday, so this picture must be from Saturday, I guess. But they've got the Fantasy Age stuff, they've got the Expanse stuff, they've got the Mutants and Mastermind stuff, they've got the Blue Rose stuff, and a variety of miscellaneous things as well. And they're nice people. Oh, that's a terrible picture. Let's delete that. That is useless. Here is some Mutants and Mastermind stuff, which is probably the only example of anybody using the D20 base system to turn that into a superhero game and actually have it come out good. There were other attempts to do that, all of which were trash. Mutants and Masterminds is actually quite good. Here is Modifius's Star Trek Adventures game. This might be, different people will tell you different things. This might be the best Star Trek game anybody's ever, RPG, and anybody's ever done. As great a fondness as I have for the old FASA Star Trek RPG, and I do, and that had some really neat novel things in it. There was also a lot that was very clumsy and reminiscent of the time. I really do feel like this game really kind of gives you the stuff you need to make your game feel like a Star Trek episode. And it wasn't that last unicorn bullshit where you had to get a different core book for I need the next gen core book to run next gen stuff, and the original series core book to run original, and the D Space Nine core. No, what a bunch of crap that was. And their systems suck. This is actually, I think, an excellent game. And I like their Conan game too. This is Modifius's Fallout game. I did see people playing this, by the way. I'm not really that big of a Fallout guy. I like started fooling with it. Started fooling with Fallout 4, which I got for like $5 a few weeks ago, and I put 4 or 5 hours into it, and I'm like, this is okay. I don't know. I just really wasn't loving it. But hey, anybody that loves it wants to play it as a tabletop RPG, here you go. This is the Dune RPG. Now, I looked at this, and it's well done. It's certainly gorgeous. They're supporting it very well. And I generally like Modifius as a publisher, but I have not really given this a serious look. Um, I did glance through the Houses of the Imperium book, and I was fairly impressed with that. I gotta tell you. This I you know so I was kind of this is what inspired the topic for tonight, by the way. We're sitting there, and I think at this point played like 4 slots, so 16 hours of Third World War, and I'm like, this is great. I'm having a good time with it, but I would really kind of like a palate cleanser at this point. That is something that I is not something I've played before, and maybe stretches my personal boundaries a little bit. And walking past this, I considered buying this until I saw the price tag. The core set is like $140, and there's tons of expansion materials for it too. And this is basically Skyrim the board game, right? It's not really like a miniatures game or anything like that. It's expensive, but it looks cool. It looks great. I bet it's good, but I was like, boy, I'd really rather play it before sinking 140 into it. Over here we are at Chaosium, and their tables are basically set up so that let's say they had 4 tables, of which 2.5 are Call of Cthulhu, 1 is RuneQuest, and about a half is everything else. But you'll see why the half that was everything else is pretty cool in a minute too. I'd love to try to play the Skyrim game, but Ben, I'm not buying it for 140 bucks unless I have confidence that I would like it and play it more than once. Let me put it that way. I did not buy anything for Call of Cthulhu this year, and that's not because I didn't want anything. It's that I feel like I'm really only buying adventures for Call of Cthulhu. And because I got the core book, I've got a bunch of the campaigns, I've really got a lifetime, not quite, but I've really got a lot of Call of Cthulhu material. And I'm not really into buying like the setting books, like the Berlin book or something like that. Now, if they do a new Gaslight book, which I think they're talking about, I'll probably buy that. Other than that, and I'll buy the Solitaire Adventures too, even though I haven't played through any of them. Um, I'll do something with Call of Cthulhu at some point. I have a very high opinion of it as a game, but I did not buy anything for. And I mean, bear in mind that of the stuff on this table, I have all but like 2 products. So there was not that much new stuff that I needed to buy. Their big new thing was that the Regency Cthulhu, actually that is pretty new, and I didn't get that. Was the Rivers of London RPG. Now, that's based on a book series by Ben Abramovich, which is it's a modern fantasy thing. It's supposed to be very good. But the fact is that I have had the first novel in the series sitting on a shelf for like 3 years, and I haven't read it yet. So I should read it. It's supposed to be good. I'd probably like it. And if so, I might want to run out and buy the RPG. But I am not afraid to order from Chaosium directly either. And I have done so multiple times. Over here is more Call of Cthulhu stuff, including the Call of Cthulhu for readers of all ages. H.P. Lovecraft's Dagon. They have actually more than one of those. When I talk about Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and the Enemy Within campaign being one of the greatest published campaigns of all time, and I think it is. Another published campaign that is on that list is that big slipcase in the middle of the picture. That is Masks of Nyarlathotep. Now, the interesting story about that is that the main creative engine there was Larry DiTilio, who was a writer for Hollywood. It actually was like the lead story editor or something like that for Babylon 5. But during the writer's strike, he's like, well, crap, I'm a writer. I can't write. That means I don't eat. I need to find other writing jobs. And he spent like some period of time writing RPG material. That included the original Masks of Nyarlathotep, which is in this enormous expanded edition from Chaosium right now. And if you want to even expand it some more, you can get the gamer prop set from the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. So Rivers of London is mechanically, it is a very stripped down BRP Call of Cthulhu implementation. So if you felt like Call of Cthulhu Light, I don't have the sense that the Abramovich books are as horror-y as Lovecraft, for one thing. So I think you're right about this, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing in this particular case. Um, I've also tried to read Charles Strauss's Laundry Files and bounced off that first book. Even though I have enjoyed a bunch of, and there's a Laundry Files RPG as well. Even though I have enjoyed a lot of Strauss's other material. Here's some pretty nice dice that they make, but I didn't buy any of them, along with the Rivers of London RPG and the brilliant RuneQuest starter set, which we did a flip through video of last year or the year before. So by all means, Call of Cthulhu Victorian is an awesome idea, and that's Cthulhu by Gaslight. That's the thing that they haven't done a Gaslight book. They've done adventures in that era, but they haven't done like the core set for Victorian London in many years, and I hope that they are continuing to do that. So here's the RuneQuest starter set. Where's the picture of the Pendragon starter set? Because that was cool. Okay, so here's the RuneQuest and 7th Sea table. The only so they had some of the Jonestown Compendium community content there too. I have all that, so I did not pick any of that. Well, I shouldn't say that. I had a bunch of that. I didn't pick any of that up, and I might be happy to have that in PDF as well. This is totally Cthulhu Cross with Dr. Seuss, by the way. They have 2 of those, by the way. Other than this and the weapons and equipment guide, which I did pick up, I did not buy any other RuneQuest stuff, but I literally have everything else in this picture that's RuneQuest other than that. Next up is more of this, and I'm not sure how I managed to not get the Pendragon starter set in the picture. That's so weird. This Sandheart campaign, I've got all 4. There's 4 of those. Yeah, there's 4 of those, and I have all those in hardcover, and I'm pretty impressed with them. This is Alan Panical's Ancient Ones, and Mr. Panical here is the fella in the picture, and I really like his stuff. And I'm going to look his stuff up because I got walls down here that need stuff to hang on them, and that would be cool. So here is Third World War. What do we got here? We got the Bulgarians cornered in a port city, the name of which escapes me at the moment. They did lose this port city. They did manage to hang on to other cities in Bulgaria, including Sofia. So Bulgaria did not get conquered by NATO, but I mean, there had to be an effort to do that. Here is Soviet forces along with Romanians and Bulgarians countering the Greek and Italian and with the help from some French paratroopers, by the way, counteroffensive that conquered Albania. Here is another in progress game of Space Empires 4X. Once again, this is a great game. I love it very much. So Will GM for Food says RuneQuest is pretty and interesting, but since character creation is so tied into the default setting, it's really hard to use with any other setting. Plus, you can't play ducks out of the core book. So this is all correct and accurate as it applies to the current edition of RuneQuest Adventures in Glorantha, or role-playing in Glorantha. However, it was not true of the RuneQuest 3rd edition. That's the Avalon Hill edition, where as long as you had the whole box, the deluxe box that had the bestiary in it too, it was not tied to Glorantha particularly close. I mean, really wasn't tied to Glorantha at all, even though one of the 5 books was like a Glorantha book, but there was like no actionable material in it. And you could absolutely play ducks in that. So take a look at RuneQuest 3rd edition. You can get a paperback copy of it not for not that much money. Noble Knight has them, I'll tell you that. All right. So Space Empires 4X is kind of designed such that the expanding player empires will come into contact fairly quickly. So if this seems crowded, the game is supposed to work like that. I still have a really high opinion of RuneQuest 3rd edition, by the way. Was this Brant? Were these the people who are in front of Cubicle 7? I think they were in front, and they had some Mork Borg stuff too. And these are the people with like several hex crawl books, World of Game Design. In fact, then they had like a huge pile of BX compatible. Who cares? Their BX compatible is also AD&D compatible, first or second edition, is also white box compatible, is also BECME compatible. There are essentially no incompatibilities between any of those systems. It's all kind of universal, and you're just kind of play acting as to snootily professing your preference for one over the other than the idiosyncrasies of the presentation. The hex crawl books did look cool, and I love hex crawls, so I was actually a little tempted by that. All right, so we just screwed some up. Okay, there we go. All right, here's me and a nice fella who sent me a picture, who wanted a picture with me because I am a celebrity, and that's super weird. But thank you for being very charming and accommodating, and for then sending me the picture. And as usual, I have my usual pleasant expression on my face. So that is the end of the Origins 2023 pictures. That took like a better part of an hour. So I'm not sure what we're gonna buzz through. So my kind of conceit for the tonight's topic, which we're gonna treat with incredible superficial nonsense. Let me pull up my other screen share. So kind of the idea here was games that I feel like other wargamers would like. That God damn it, that is kind of, and I tried to stay away. I did not entirely succeed in staying away from Avalon Hill and GMT titles. But yeah, so Lankmar, there's a Lankmar box set, William Boardman. And yes, it is from the Dungeon Crawl Classics people. So it was at Goodman Games. Now they had like this sort of back corridor with everything was 50% off, and that thing got cleaned out, like dead empty by the end of it. And they also had like a bunch of those original adventures reincarnated. Had I remembered which of those I had, they're on here somewhere. Which of those I had, I might have picked up one or two of them. All that was 50% off. They had a ton of stuff in there. It was a very good price. Oh, cool. So Brant says that they already have a commitment from Origins to enlarge the area to 50% more space, and that might end up being bigger than that. So I have as like D&D adjacent games go, I have a higher opinion of Dungeon Crawl Classics than most. I have it, I have played it, I had a good time with it. But why I have a higher opinion of it is that it actually has something to say on its own, rather than just slavishly copying what was done in 1974 or 1981 or whatever. However, it is fundamentally still D&D, right? So if you're okay with that and you want Lankmar, and I think D&D is actually, other than not doing a great job at replicating the characters from the source material, tonally Lankmar fits very well into D&D. And if you want that, then yeah, I would say that the DCC material is probably the best material. Yes, I thought so. And the fact that they were completely cleaned out will show you. Perry Sporopoulos says, would like to see somebody bring back Empire of the Pedal Throne. Somebody did, and it did not work out. That was Guardians of Order, and Guardians of Order decided to go out of business while continuing to sell the product in PDF on DriveThruRPG and not pay any of the authors. So I have a pretty low opinion of the folks running Guardians of Order, or the folks formerly running Guardians of Order. I did like their Tecmo game, but I believe it is now safe to say that we will not be seeing the return of that product. But also in any formal capacity, but it's also true to say that nothing really dies on the internet. Lee Grant mentions 156 watching. It's 159 now, and only 75 likes. So yes, please. I'm bad at reminding people to do this, by the way. So yes, please clip that like button, even though we stopped clipping counters like half an hour ago or an hour ago. And I got about half a sheet done tonight. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Check out the Patreon and all that stuff. It's all in the video description. So thank you very much, Lee Grant, for mentioning that. Yeah, I mean, I have a I have had personal interactions with some of the Tekamo people, not including M.A.R. Barker, with whom I never personally interacted. And mostly I think they're nice people, and many of them were caught flat-footed by that revelation. Not all of them were, some of them knew. And the decision to keep that quiet even after Barker's passing was perhaps questionable, but maybe it is the entire endeavor now seems to me to be tainted. This is a lot of work. I recommend to you my 3D fabulous 3D printed counter trays for organization purposes. I will have the 1 inch by 1/2 inch trays out. Probably I'll have at least a couple of those models out in July. And Brant, thank you very much. Also, he sends his thanks to Lee Hanna for his work on Third World War at Origins. Lee was, I mean, it wouldn't have happened without Lee. It might have happened without me, but it would not have happened without Lee at all. So I'm not sure Lee is with us anymore. He was earlier in the night. So not war game adjacent games or kind of war games that are maybe not they're maybe not at the obvious center of war games that war gamers would nevertheless like. Republic of Rome is a fabulous game. This might have been originally published by somebody else. And after this, it was published by Valley Games, which did a fairly nice looking edition, at least. This is a wonderful game filled with backstabbing and treachery and bribery and graft and all those great things that we remember ancient Rome for. It is semi cooperative and semi competitive. It's competitive, but it's also to some degree cooperative as well. It is difficult to pin that down without a detailed explanation. But this is a great game. I regret getting rid of it, to be honest. Next up is Frank Herbert's Dune. This is kind of a brilliant game that really doesn't really try to duplicate the action of the novel in any meaningful way, but it masterfully replicates the tone of the books. This is the original Avalon Hill cover. There was a later Avalon Hill cover that I believe was based on the David Lynch movie. And then Gale Force 9 brought, so there was a French edition that you could get English rules for by, I think, by Descartes, that was available for a long time, and then that became unavailable too. Or in the last 4 years, maybe something like that, Gale Force 9 did a new edition of it, which is the one I have. It's very nice. This is a terrific game. Don't play it with less than 6 people. It is not, you could probably play it with 4 or 5, but it's way cooler with 6 people. War of the Ring. I've played, and the other thing is, most of these games that I've got in this very short overview, I have actually played. This is 100% a war game, but it is maybe, one that we historical war gamers maybe don't think of. It does have little miniatures in them. You don't have to paint them, but it is a terrific game. It is rich in Middle Earth flavor. I enjoyed it tremendously when we played it. Can I improve maybe? Anyway, this is the cover of the Fantasy Flight version. I believe the newer version is from Ares, I think. So this is the first edition. There was a second edition as well. Dominant Species from Chad Jensen. This is a GMT game, and it's kind of like I would call it a Euro, but it's like a Euro about your species surviving and evolving in the face of changing ecosystems. It's actually pretty cool. I tried to read Dune once or twice before succeeding, but I can tell you that I read it successfully. Now, did I get all of the subtext? No. I'm still reading that book and finding new things in it, to be honest, as recently as the last time I reread it a couple of years ago. I read it for the first time at age 12. So now I had bounced off it at least once prior to that though. So there's that. So it ain't the easiest book to read. But once it's one of those things like once I got going and got the momentum, I was through to the end. More Lord of the Rings was like that for me too. I bounced off of that multiple times. And that was harder to achieve that momentum for me in Lord of the Rings than it was in Dune. Star Wars Rebellion, Peter Fulford, is not on this list, but the only reason it's not is that I haven't played it. It looks quite good. It is supposed to be quite good, and it is probably the this generation's nearest equivalent to Freedom in the Galaxy, with the serial numbers not filed off. But I'm more of a Freedom in the Galaxy guy. So, my wife one Christmas, she got me a 3D printer, which has been running, unless I've been at a convention, has been running continuously since December 25th, 26th. So, I'm not sure I successfully managed to read Children of Dune, actually. I certainly read the first one multiple times, and I've read the second one at least twice. But I think I got bogged in the third book. Ringworld is a good game. Somebody also mentioned Battlestar Galactica. And I haven't played that, so that's not on this list either. However, that has a really good reputation. So I expect that is a good game. Now I have played the Game of Thrones first edition, and it's pretty good. It's probably longer than it's supposed to be, but other than that, it's pretty good. I still do I have that still? I might. Um, I felt like Timothy Chalamet completely sold it, but that was kind of part of the way they portrayed the character. I really like the new Dune. I like the David Lynch version. 1775 Rebellion, which we have mentioned before. It is probably fair to call this. I believe this is a facile use of terminology, and it is completely semantic things to say. But I'm going to say it anyway because I think it's clever, and I'll show you the counterpoint in a minute. This is kind of a war game for Euro gamers. It is Eurogame mechanics, but it is the American Revolution. It plays very well. I like it a lot. There is a video game implementation that also is decent, especially if you play against a human opponent as opposed to the AI. Another game from Academy Games is Freedom: The Underground Railroad. This is a cooperative game. You play the Underground Railroad collectively against the forces of slavery. It is a it's let's call it heavy material, okay? But at the same time, I learned more about the Underground Railroad playing this game once than I learned in however many years of schooling that I had, which was, kind of a lot. So I highly recommend this game. I think this is the single best thing Academy Games has done. And I think some of their other stuff is really, really good too. Jeff Beeler says one thing he liked about GURPS was all the setting books based on books like Jack Vance's and Alan Dean Foster's. I never really got into the Alan Dean Foster stuff, but I was Jack Vance. I do like Jack Vance. So, and they did Discworld. Uh, 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 Lee, unless there's like another Game of Thrones board game that we're talking about that other than the one I've played, which was the Fantasy Flight version, or unless the new edition has changed it dramatically, then while there's certainly like an element in there of diplomacy in the sense of knives in the ass, I would not compare it to diplomacy on a mechanical level in any remote way. Um, so there's that. David Lynch's Dune is a little batshit, but so is the Denis Villeneuve one, to be honest about it. I've never read any of the Man Kazin Wars material, but I have read a fair amount of Larry Niven, so there's that. Game of Thrones Risk. So I had back when the movies were coming out, and God knows this is like 25 years ago now. Somebody, my sister probably bought me like a couple of the board games over the course of a couple of Christmases, and I got the Lord of the Rings Monopoly, which was balls on toast. But the other one that they got me was the Lord of the Rings Risk, which actually was really kind of fun, and which I have never gotten rid of. I still have that; it's up in the garage right now. John Longshore mentions, at some point we're going to have. I'm not really going to talk about this in detail today, but well, I'll at least say what it is. John Longshore mentions Steam coming 6 September 2023 Starfield. So this is Bethesda's new RPG. And if you wanted to call it Skyrim meets No Man's Sky, you might not be particularly far from the truth. As somebody who has put in the three different versions of Skyrim, that four maybe different versions of Skyrim that I have, I've probably put 300 or 400 hours into it. I think it's one of my favorite video games of all time. I am buying the shit out of this. I might even take a day or two off to play it. That is possible. I am like really pumped about this now that we've had that big reveal. Interestingly, Todd Howard, who is the main development guy at Bethesda and has been for many years and has been since at least Oblivion, was interviewed maybe even a year ago, but several months ago at least, talking about kind of the inspirations for Starfield. And he, of course, mentioned a bunch of video games like Red Dead Redemption, kind of give you the sense of being in the place and richly developed world and all that. But he also mentioned Traveler. And of course, the Traveler community went completely nuts about that. But it very much feels like that, right? But it is going to be kind of a first-person game. You have a ship, you can run around trading and get into trouble and shit like that. So I expect good things from Starfield at this point. And they were already planning the first expansion to it. So in addition to that, Fire in the Lake, coin games. My three favorite coin games for the record. So it could have been any of these, but we've already mentioned Liberty or Death once tonight. Fire in the Lake is one of the other three, and the third is Pendragon. I think all three are great games. I think of those, I think Fire in the Lake feels less like a war game to me than Pendragon does. And of the three, they're all war games. Okay, they're all about a conflict. There is conflict in all of them. I don't take seriously the idea that these are not war. At least these three coin games are not war games. Maybe some of the other ones, maybe not. I'd have to give consideration to them on a case by case basis. But I have done that for these three, and they're all war games. Of the three, Liberty or Death is probably the wargamiest because it's kind of the one that's got kind of a bump out combat system on top of the coin stuff. Root is on this list as well, by the way. We'll talk about that in a second. It might be the only one on the list I haven't played. Technically, I haven't played this either. This is Twilight Imperium 4th edition, but I have played 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition, and I like Twilight Imperium very much. It has progressively become Euro-ier as the editions have gone by. In that it has done a considerable amount of streamlining and has introduced some mechanics that we might more strongly associate with Euro games. However, this is also totally a war game. I don't think there's any question about that. There's tons of fighting in this. It might be possible to win a diplomatic victory, but I've played this a decent number of times, meaning I've played it probably half a dozen times over the course of the various editions. And Imperial Starfire is really interesting. Not something we're going to do next year, though, Brant. Sorry about that. But I really like Twilight Imperium. The 4th edition is considered by most players to be superior to the previous editions. And it's still a war game, whether it includes a little bit of Euro-y juice or not. Root. This is one that I haven't played. This is by Leader. I don't know how that's supposed to be pronounced. Games. This is not a coin game. Okay. It is, however, coin inspired. It's pretty clearly coin inspired, in fact. It doesn't really, other than being asymmetric, it really doesn't have any of the characteristic features of coin games, other than it's asymmetric and there's like different actions the different factions can take. I have not tried Oath, Eric Hansen, and I would be interested in seeing it, but that's kind of another one where I'd really want to try it out before I got into it. It's really not something I've looked at very closely. A lot of people have considered this a war game. I'm not equipped to argue with them. The asymmetry is kind of what makes the game, as is kind of the case with coin games as well. I'm not going to argue with that assessment, but it is kind of little furries in the forest. which is kind of not my theme. Okay. And that is why, while if I was at a convention and I was like, I was free and it was in front of me and I was asked to play, I would probably play it. But I don't have like a plan to play this. Undaunted is a war game. I don't understand no self-consistent definition. Coming up with a self-consistent definition of war game is itself problematic. But there is no vaguely sensible definition of war game that does not include Undaunted. Pax Pamir would this is a game that I played at Buckeye Game Fest, and it's a pretty interesting design. Mechanically, it's straight Euro. It's got Euro mechanics. It's got the marketplace. It's got the tableau. It's got all not all, but it's got a number of signature mechanics that we associate with Euro games. It is a very interesting design, and it's certainly visually very interesting as well. So I get why people rave about this game. I don't know that I would play it a lot, and I decided I wasn't buying it, but I would totally play this again. I think it's pretty good. Nordic Maelstrom asks about Target for Today. That is from Legion Wargames. It is basically calling it B-17 Queen of the Skies on steroids, and like not steroids, but steroids, lots of steroids, is pretty accurate. I haven't played it, but I have it, and I'm pretty impressed with it. It is the same kind of game as B-17 Queen of the Skies, but way more detailed. If 1775 Rebellion is a war game for Euro gamers, then Europa Universalis: The Price of Power is a Euro game for war gamers. This was actually one of the other inspirations for the topic, which I think might be perfectly timed because it's about the end of the show. I'm really impressed with what I've seen of this game so far. Now, I did do kind of a quick walkthrough with the designer. Thank you, Liz, for setting that up. But I haven't really played a full game of it yet. We do have a local fella, more or less, that really wants to play more of this. Although that isn't going to happen in the next couple of weeks. I really strongly feel like that's going to happen between now and November. Let me put it that way. Do I have another one? I might not. I do not have another one. That is the end of the show. Okay. So we did actually manage to get through a decent chunk of content here, a lot of which was Origins recap. I would really like to thank everybody for stopping by tonight. We will be back next week with a more kind of more along the lines of what we've been doing lately, a more detailed look at a wargaming topic, a number of which are worked out already. Let me put it that way. Kind of dragging my feet on doing Market Garden for some reason, but we might see Market Garden next week. We'll see. We do have the show with Dan which is now on Thursday. We are still working on a guest this week, but I have confidence that we will have a really awesome guest on Thursday. Dan, don't make me an asshole. This is also true, actually. So although the core themes differ, the Greg Smith solo model tends to be, with the possible exception of American Tank Case, the Greg Smith solo model tends to be very much the same kind of game as B-17 Queen of the Skies. Traveler Tuesday will be back. I'm not sure it's going to happen. Well, it's not going to happen this week because there's a video scheduled for tomorrow. What is that video? Tomorrow's video is actually the Origins Vendor Hall walkthrough video. That'll be out at 10. It's about 45 minutes long. So it'll make you feel like you're there, nauseous and all. I did buy a Traveler product. You'll see that in the loot video, which I think comes out on Friday, maybe. Or maybe next Tuesday. So you'll see the Traveler video, and I now have a Traveler thing to do a video on, so that I haven't done before. And that's going to be Aliens of Charted Space Volume 3. So look forward to that. So Traveler Tuesday will be back sooner or later. So we've got tomorrow, we got a video. Wednesday, we got a video. Thursday, we got a video or two. Friday, we'll have a video. So there's going to be a lot of video this week. All of it tied to either Origins or to the loot obtained at Origins. You will say hi to McKenna for me, Brant. Thank you. So I did pick up Mr. President. After saying I'm not going to buy Mr. President. I was looking at it and I bought it. There'll be an unboxing video of that on Thursday. That's the Thursday unboxing. So Spitfire Ace should be coming along at some point as well. All right, so we are out of time, folks, and I have drank half of this weird overhopped alleged American wheat ale, which doesn't taste like an American wheat. It's not terrible. It just doesn't taste like an American. It doesn't taste like a wheat ale. It tastes like an IPA with wheat. And I love wheat ale, by the way. Anyway, we will be back next Monday for some wargaming topic. And I hope to bring you a new interview fairly soon, but we'll see. We're on different schedules for that. So there's an aggressive slate of content coming over the next several days, and I hope you all join me for that. And I hope that you will all join me next Monday night when I will see you all there. So in the meantime, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.